Okay. Hello, people. Any of you feeling creative? Creative? Yeah? Well, thank you for staying around, sticking around, especially because the happy hour at the top bar has already started. I'm surprised that there are so many of you here, even though I do know that half of you here are still here because you are aiming to snag the iPad Pro. First of all, I would like to sincerely thank Hasnul and his awesome team at MDEC for bestowing upon me the honor of speaking in front of all of you. I am tremendously honored and touched, and also especially because you guys have treated me so well in the past 2 days. You know what, it's just like, I guess this is the last talk of the conference, since I know you guys have been overloaded with lots of information. You've learned a lot of stuff. And so I think, we should give a shout out to Hasnul and the team MDEC for setting this up, huh? So I'm sorry about the phone thing. I swear I'm not texting my mom. I am using this to control my iPad, which is stationed over there, so it's to change the slides. And so today I would like to talk about, this is the topic of my title of my talk. So if I remember correctly, people at MDEC emailed me early April and asking me whether I'd be interested in talking and if I can arrange my schedule to be here. And the email specified that please reply within 10 days whether you can or cannot come, and please specify a topic for my talk. And as always, I've been running around and I've been mingling in my mind what I should be talking about. So I settled on this topic offhand, which is sort of based on a similar talk I gave back in 2013 in Stuttgart, Germany at a conference called FMX. Remember when you guys were going to school and your teacher would give you assignments, say, write an essay or something, and then you got a week to finish it? And I don't know about you, but I see two distinct personalities in response to that assignment. The former would be a very meticulous, methodical person, where he or she would ration out that week to finish that essay. The latter would be someone who would do nothing, even though it would be in their minds, up until probably the evening before the due assignment, and wait for the adrenaline to burst out of their genes to start working on their assignment. And I'm sort of the latter. So, I'm a blatant hypocrite because to my employees, I request the former. But true to my nature, I sort of started working on the presentation rather late and finished it about 2 hours before I'm talking to you. And to the extent, and even though I worked on this, I actually did this presentation 3 years ago, to the extent that I basically changed everything, to the extent that I changed the title to Creating CG Animated Series. You will see a conspicuous loss of 2 words, mainly for TV, the reason which I will dwell upon later in my talk. But this sort of I think, exemplifies the massive changes that we've been seeing in our content industry in just the past 3 years. And so I would like to talk about that. But before I do so, I'd like to give a formal introduction about myself and the company that I run. Again, my name is Shuzo John Shiota. Shuzo is my Japanese name. John is my English name, which I never used in the States, but I use it amongst Asians because lots of Asians find Shuzo very hard to announce. And so you can choose whichever you want to call me, either Shuzo or John, whichever is easy for you. And I run a company called Polygon Pictures, which is a digital animation company like this. We are based in Tokyo, Japan. And we have the distinction of being the largest scale digital animation company in Japan. The other distinction that we have is that we were established in 1983. And so we have been around for 33 years, something that I personally am extremely proud of, especially in that we have been operating in Japan, where CG isn't that cool for many years. And as also considering that 1983 signifies, well, I mean, if you think of it, computer graphics, the name itself, computer graphics, was coined somewhere around 1963 by a guy at Boeing, I think it was. Its implementation in the entertainment industry started somewhere from the mid-70s, spearheaded by, of course, Industrial Light and Magic through Star Wars and whatnot. And you know, all these big names that you know, all these big studios that you know that produce these blockbuster films like Pixar and Blue Sky or PDI DreamWorks, you know, all of these companies were created in the 80s. And if you consider that, you know, well, ILM is mainly a visual effects company. Of course, they do sometimes call themselves an animation company. But as a company that sort of focuses on character animation, we at Polygon think we are one of, if not the oldest standing studio in the world, especially with the unfortunate loss of brand of PDI, Dreamers from PDI. So. We've been around for a long time, and we're proud of that. In the Polygon Pictures group of companies, there is another company that we established about 3 years ago called J-Cube. It's a company that's based in Tokyo as well, but we don't have, there is no Japanese employee. The employees are Italian, Chinese, Portuguese, and another Italian. And they are based in Tokyo and also in Malaysia. And it's a company that focuses on development, R&D, for developing shaders and rendering solutions for our productions. But more importantly, and this is probably why I'm here, is that we have a company in Malaysia as well. And it's called Silbrand PPI. The name is derived from the fact that it is a joint venture between a company called Silbrand, which many of you probably know, which I think is the premier studio in Malaysia, creating CGI content. And so we have been around since 2013, January. So we have been around for 3.5 years. And since our inception, MDEC and the Malaysian government and the Malaysian people have been extremely, extremely supportive of what we've been trying to achieve. And I'm very, very thankful for this. And your support, I think, we are repaying in a certain way, as right now in our studio in Petaling Jaya, we have a team of about 70 people working on extremely high-profile projects, some of which I will introduce to you later in my talk. And I find it a true collaboration between the Polygon Pictures in Tokyo and Silbrand PPI in Malaysia, and we do projects together. And this has been the founding principle of Silbrand PPI since its inception, in that this is a company we've created to do projects together. It's not like, okay, we send off some, you know, easier ones to SAPI, that's what we call Silbrand PPI SAPI, and we do the hard ones in Tokyo. No, the concept was from the onset to do extremely high-profile projects together, and so far it's been going pretty good, and I find that it's a really good collaboration between our people in Malaysia and our people in Tokyo. So these three companies, the Polygon Pictures group of companies, share a same mission statement, which is this: to do what no other has done in unparalleled quality for all the world to see and enjoy. And this has been the founding principle since 33 years ago. By the way, I did not found the company, because 33 years ago, I was pretty young, and so I could not have founded the company 33 years ago. I'm actually the third president. I have been with the company since 1996. I am the third president, but the founding father of our company has been professing this since inception, and I really believe it and take it to heart. So we're always trying to do what no other has done. We're always trying to do in unparalleled quality, and we're always trying to do not just for the Japanese market, but for all the world to see. And these three lines is never static, you know, because things that nobody has done, it always changes with time. Quality changes with time because of the readily available technologies or, you know, trends and whatnot. And even the concept of world changes with time because the world is forever changing, the market is changing, the media is changing. So this principle, I think, allows us to look upon us to see and check to see that our activities are up to par with what we were found to do. And how we achieve this is by placing emphasis on these three core principles, namely creative, technology, and management. And we try to balance these three elements at a good balance. So all these three are extremely important, and all three are important to the same degree, and it has to be balanced. And this is our guiding principle in how we run the company. So this is something that I'm going to touch upon even in my topic of talking about serialized animation. But before we do so, I'd like to introduce you to what our company looks like and what we've sort of created so far. Thank you. So yeah, as you can see, you know, we work on a huge variety of projects. Polygon Pictures and Silverhand PPI together, we usually have at any time 20 different projects, big, small, and medium, in length ranging from 2 to 3 years to something that may, you know, end in like about a week or so. We deal with lots of different mediums like, you know, game cinematics or sometimes live action, live venues and whatnot. But currently, the bulk of what we do is about the topic that we I'm going to talk about, which is serialized CGI animation. And we have been doing a lot of these over the years. The first one that we were involved in is called, it's a Japanese property called, which we've, it's an original property that we produced based on a really popular Japanese celebrity called George Tokoro, and it's called Mr. Digital Tokoro. This was in 2000, and we created 245 episodes worth of 3 minutes. It was broadcast from Monday to Friday for a whole year. And so this is how we firstly honed our TV series production workflow and pipeline. Again, this was on television, terrestrial television. And then after this, we helped create Disney televisions, My Friends Tigger and Pooh, which is on for television as well. This was 63 episodes of 22 minutes. I think this was in 2005 that we started production, and this was actually our first foray into doing productions for North American clients. So it was our first big North American gig. And nextly, we did a series called Transformers Prime, and this was for the newly formed Hasbro Studios, of course, to promote the Transformers franchise. This was in 2009. We created 65 episodes of 22 minutes, and in the process, we were able to garner multiple Emmys, 3 including for ourselves as well. At approximately about the same time, we were in production for a program called Tron Uprising, which was 19 episodes of 22 minutes. This is it was one of the most complicated shows that we were involved in, especially, and I can see the essay, yeah. And it was very, very complicated. Disney spent a lot of money on this, and we lost a lot of money on this as well. And and what was difficult, it was one of the most difficult projects, but it's actually, for me, it's one of the most proud projects that we were involved in. And it actually created the foundation of the projects that, Japanese projects that I will introduce to you now later. What was difficult is that it's the look of the show. So the showrunners, Charlie Bean, and the designers, Alberto Mielgo, who did the production design, Robert Bally, who did the character design, these guys are all just like geniuses in their own field of work, and absolutely non-conforming and unrelentless in what they want to achieve, right? And we were totally on board for that. And initially, it started out with Alberto's and Robert's designs, which is very, very graphical. And so they were thinking about doing this in 2D, and upon which, you know, I just happened to visit the WD-TV office, and then they were, and Lisa Salamone, the producer, called to talk to me and say, you know, we're talking about this program, we're thinking of it in 2D, but it seems to be very hard to do in 2D. And of course, it's Tron, it's very graphical, but you see all these lights, you know, and there's so many elements which would be crazy to do in hand-drawn. And so we were talking, we're brainstorming, so okay, well, Charlie and Robert, everybody wanted very expressive expressions, expressive hands and stuff, which can only, they thought at that time, can be expressed through hand-drawn animation. But the practicalities of CGs were needed. And so we were brainstorming, so why don't we just do a hybrid? And that was easier said. And then we go into look development in many, many months and try to define the look and style. And I will show it to you later what it sort of style it evolved into. But the difficulty is that, and Shinichiro-san was talking about it in his previous talk, talking about anime and how the anime market responds to CGI. CG, you have to remember, was created as a tool to simulate real-life situations. It was a simulator. So what can happen in real life, in real space, if you can calculate it, it can happen. Whereas a lot of what we do in animation, including this sort of graphical style or contorted style, is physically incorrect. And CG has the hardest time trying to replicate something that is physically incorrect, which includes graphical styles such as this, or the anime type of toon shading, which is, realistically, it's not correct. And so this was how we entered into this crazy scene. But anyway, while we were doing productions on Tron and Transformers, we were stupid and we took on Clone Wars because we thought we can, and we did it, though. We were very honored to be included in the season 4 and 5. We were able to participate in 6 episodes of this terrific series, and we were able to work with some of the most talented and organized production people at then Lucas Animation. Right now, we are working on a few series, one of which is another Transformers franchise called Transformers Robots in Disguise. As you can see, it's a completely different looking style from the Transformers Prime, whereas Transformers Prime is very straightforward, legit CG. With RID, we've gone to the toon shaded style, mainly because the producers thought that they've gone too adult with Prime and they wanted to go back to kids, the younger kids, with more comedic style, which the toon shade lends itself better. So that was currently 24 episodes, I think. Okay? Yeah, 22 minutes. And then, we're still working on this one. And then we decided, okay, well, we're a weird company that, we've been producing a lot of stuff for North America since 2005, and we've been winning Emmys and stuff, but in Japan, nobody really knew us. So it was like, Polygon Pictures, is that an American company? Nobody really knew that we were actually in Tokyo. And so in 2013, we decided, after we developed all this toon shade technology with Tron, and we might as well use it, and so we decided, okay, well, maybe, just maybe, now that we've developed our technology in CG and we can replicate the hand-drawn warmness or hand-drawn contorted style of anime type of animation, why don't we give it a try? And this is our first project, which we co-produced, and we directed internally. The story and everything, all the pre-production elements are in-house. Whereas all of these productions, other than Mr. Digital Tokoro, was an outsourcing gig. This was our first, well, this was our return into co-producing our gigs, and it's called Knights of Sidonia. We were lucky enough to produce this at the same time Netflix was coming up as a power player, and so this had the distinction becoming Netflix's first original anime title, and so it was promoted alongside with other Netflix original properties such as The House of Cards or Narcos or Daredevil. At about the same time, we started working on, by the way, Knights of Sidonia was done also in Malaysia as well, and at the same time we started to work on Ronya the Robber's Daughter, which was, we were participating in the pre-production, but was an outsourcing gig. The distinction of this is that it was directed by Goro Miyazaki, and so you would probably recognize the last name Miyazaki, the Ghibli fame, and so he's actually the son of Hayao Miyazaki, and he actually directed 2 features under the Ghibli banner, the latter of which was extremely popular, and so this was his first foray into TV animation. And though it's a Ghibli style, a lot of his pre-production people were from Ghibli, it's done in CGI, other than the backgrounds. And again, parts of this was done in SAPI, SAPPI as well. This program just recently, I think a month ago, won the International Emmy for children's animation. So again, another slot on our shelf of Emmy Awards. And right now we are working on this program called Ajin, Demi-Human. Again, this is a 26 episodes, 22 minutes. You can actually see it in Malaysia as well, because again, this was given the distinction of a Netflix original anime. So it's branded as an original property, and it's going on as we speak. So we're working on a couple other animated series. I can't, if you squint your eyes really, really tight, you still won't get it because I made sure you can. But it's pretty kick-ass projects that we're working on. And when we say we, again, I mean Polygon and Silverant BPI. So all this together, so far, we have created 6,345 hours of serialized content. That's a lots of content to produce. And you know, the volume speaks, but it doesn't mean that we're creating stupid material. I mean, it doesn't mean we're creating crappy material. We're creating quality material, as you know, as testament by the Annie Awards or the Emmy Awards or the International Emmy Awards or the individual Emmy Awards that we as a company or our animators have won in this production. But you know, it's not easy. It's not easy. You know, if you look around the world to see how many CGI studios are creating serialized content with distinction, Webby Awards and stuff, you don't find a lot of them. And why is it? Because it's not that easy. And why it's not that easy? There are multiple factors, and the first of which is that just the pure volume of stuff that you have to deal with. And for instance, this is just for MALAYSIA Sidonia. We, in a typical production, serialized production, we have to involve about an aggregate of 178 people. Multiple nations, Japan, Malaysia. We do some asset work in China. We might be doing some work in India. Typically, our staff is comprised of multiple nations, even in Tokyo, by the way. We are one of the few studios in Japan that have people from other nations. Usually 20% of our population of about 300 would be from other nations. In last count, we had people from 17 different nations working in the company. Silverant BPI, likewise, is comprised of multiple nationalities. And so for Sidonia, we had people from 12 different nations, all of whom would devote 203,680 hours of their precious life to create animation. They would perform 43,000 tasks, they would create 8,400 shots, ultimately to create 528 minutes of finished animation. So that's a lot of work. And this is just one project. Let's see. And we have to create a lot of volume in limited time. This is a typical timeline, but I brought this from our Tron Uprising sample episode timeline. And this is disregarding the time that the people at Disney spent for pre-production. And so just in production itself, and also disregarding the post-production processes, we were using what, 15, 20, can't do the math, 12, 27, well, you know, limited amount of time. So if you compare to, say, you know, what a feature film creates in, say, 2-3 years, we will be creating 528 minutes, you know, at the equal amount of time. So in Chris's talk, in the keynote, he was, you know, this amazing story about the blasters in 170-something iterations or something by the time you're done, you know? That's crazy too. But we're crazy on the other end in that we create like 528 minutes, you know, in that limited amount of time. Same craziness, different types of craziness, but we have to do a lot within limited time. And there's also the issue of money, or the lack of money, usually. Whereas, like, you know, I'll say, well, a 100-minute feature would be 100 million production budget or something. Equal comparison would be about 13,000, and that's not even a cheap show, but per minute. And so, you know, it's a different game. It's a different game. So, so we're talking about lots of volume in limited time and limited budget, and then, but you know, we are asked to create value at the same time. It just can't be haphazard. It has to be a good content. So why do we do it? Because it sounds, so far it sounds pretty depressing, right? I mean, it's, well, I mean, all of us creators are masochists in a way, but that doesn't just explain it, right? And why do we do it? Well, because, you know, it's apart from the fact that it's fun, it's still fun, and it's great working with a lot of people, a lot of talented people to create content that people will actually see. But, you know, there is a definite market for these things. And when you talk about serialized content, up until a few years ago, you were talking about television, be it terrestrial or cable, but it was television. But now, with the advent of the streaming industry, you have these big players like the Netflix and the Hulus and Amazon coming in, craving for content, and all of which are asking for serialized content. The demand is just huge, and they're paying some decent money for these things. They would rather have serialized content than feature length. The reason being is that for the same acquisition or maybe less, they can retain the attention span of the viewers for a long time, because we're talking about 26 episodes times 22. It's a longer time to binge, you know, as compared to 90 to 100, 120 minutes. So the demand for serialized content is, I find, more huge than ever. So it's a great opportunity that is being proposed to us. And it's also a different game in that streaming content doesn't have as much regulations as normal terrestrial would have with their standards and practices and such. The freedom of creation on these streaming platforms is much, much more free. And especially when you talk about the stuff that we co-produce, like the anime content, it's pretty freaking violent what we do, you know? I mean, we don't have a lot of these things. I mean, most of our stuff we don't create for kids. We create for like grown-ups who never grown up, you know? And so it's pretty controversial. And previously, it was hard to find a slot to play these things on normal terrestrial or cable, but whereas in streaming, because the space is limitless and people have access, can have easy access to these things, there are now slots to play these things. In fact, because it's edgy, there is a craving for more edgy content, which for people like us, independent producers of things like anime, it's a godsend. It's been a godsend in the past few years. And so, like I said, you know, our placement as Netflix's first Netflix original anime content, 2 of them, you know, is I think a testament to this. So the challenge, so there's a market. So the challenge, again, to reiterate, we have to find ways to how to create massive volumes of content within a limited time and for a long time. So even though the production cycles for an episode may be short, we have to continue to do this for 26, 52, 65, basically a long time. So how do you do it in limited time for a long time with limited budget and, of course, without sacrificing quality? So, you know, we had to find answers to these challenges. And the way we do this, in our case, is the same as how we operate a company, by basically balancing technology, creative, and management. So, of course, you know, when a project starts, we would have to, the seed of any project would have to be the creative aspects of the property. And we would all, I mean, in anything, we would need to strive to create new value. So in the past 2 days, me personally, I've sat in on great sessions talking about how to create content, promote content, what is needed, what they are looking for. So I'm not going to talk about story elements, how to create story, how to develop art styles and whatnot, even though that is extremely, extremely important. That's the first step that you would do. And so today I'm just, in the creative aspect, I'm just going to touch about, and we do that too, but I'm going to touch about how we develop looks and styles, because we are in the medium of animation. We are doing it with using CGI as a tool. The possibilities are limitless, and we like to dabble with different looks and styles. And so again, with Tron, so this was Tron. It looks awesome, if I may say so myself. But you know, this was part of the first test that we actually done with WTVA, and based on the designs that Charlie and Alberto and Robert had come up with, and we were discussing how to make it happen. It was a longer test, which they eventually used into a trailer. But we spent a lot of time, 4 or 5 months, developing the look and style, just to develop the look and style. And I think that's really important, because you want to create something awesome, obviously, but TV, well, serialized production is a moving, huge freight truck or train, and once it starts moving, it cannot stop. You know, it does not stop. You cannot stop. You don't turn around. Just go. No? And so you can't be saying, okay, well, the look and style is, how do we achieve that and this and that when it starts running? So you have to figure it out before you start it. And so it's all the more important to define what you want to achieve, the new coolness, the new awesomeness that you want to define for each show. Here's another one that we did on our own for look development. It was never turned into a show yet, but then in our pursuit of creating new looks and styles in the CGI medium, there was a property that we picked up. It was based on an independent comic, but it's a comic, but he's using puppets to portray the story. And so we were trying to figure it out, okay, how to retain that essence, but make it into a production. And so if you look at it, the characters are going to be in CG, but moving like puppets, but the backgrounds are photographed practical elements. Thank you. And this next one is some really early development that we were doing for our current show, Ajin Demi-Human. It's So, I mean, some of you who are versed in the CGI production field know that one of our biggest obstacles in creating any show is that we have to create assets. We have to create each and everything that you see on screen rather than, like, say, a live action, you can film things and it's there, or in animation, hand-drawn animation, you can draw things and it's there. With CGI, before you start anything, you have to be modeling and rigging everything that you see on screen. And it's a huge burden. This is what makes CGI very expensive and hard to set up. And so we were discussing, since our next property is going to be based on current Japan, about current people with, you know, two-legged human-sized characters, how can we economize and create a different look at the same time? And so and CGI has come to a point where you can take photographs and it can turn it into data and model and bring it into 3D space, and we started playing with that. And so this is a case where this is a photo, I think, that we took of our neighborhood right next to our office, and then we digitized it into CGI, made it into models, and then we toon shaded it. And then we said, okay, well, let's test to see if we can composite it with an animate-looking character and see if it works. I mean, the designs, the character models is very, very rough, so it looks nothing like this in the real current series. But then, you know, we figured, well, you know, that we might have something here. So we would do things like this. We would try to mix and match. We would try to reinvent ourselves in every production, because we feel that for every show, there needs to be a new value. And so, and this has to be figured on before we go into production, because when we get into production, again, it's a non-stopping train. And once we figure this out, then it gets into management. We try to figure out, okay, well, the ideas are limitless. What we want to do is limitless, but then how can we do it with a limit, within the limitations of the budget or the schedule? And that's when management takes place, mainly in how we define our workflow. So this is a typical workflow when we go into production of an anime-style look. There are like these words that you would never see in any other production called genzu or bijutsu, which is Japanese, because it's like what we call matte paintings in Japanese. It's a very, this part is it's something that we have to integrate from a 2D Japanese anime process. And so like this, you know, we always have to reiterate our workflow processes depending on what we want to achieve. Sometimes, again, in the current Jim production, we went so blatant as to do away with 70% of storyboards. And for those of you who are versed in the production of animation, you know that storyboards is basically the blueprint of the production. So this is what animators go after, and for any productions to do without storyboards sounds pretty crazy. But we sort of replaced the storyboards by motion capturing and visualizing, virtual camera directing, motion capture actors, and directing the directors directing on the spot, and as if it's a live action show. And by doing this, and then we can do this again because Ajin is a modern show. It's placed in the current. The characters are real. It's happening in normal environments. And so take a look at how the whole workflow has replaced storyboards. And you'll see a thing called story reel, which is now our equivalent of a storyboard coming from our pre-visualization motion capture data, and then we'll go to layout and final animation.
行くよよく寝れよし行くよ
So as you can see, it's a romantic comedy for preschool. Has its place in Cartoon Network, right? So anyway, so by doing this, you know, basically it granted the director's need to portray it as like a live action show, but not only did it do that, it sort of economized on our production processes because it went straight from directing to the layout. The data was used for layout and then so it cut down on some of the processes. It made our production efficient. And so we would do things like that. We would just tweak our workflow to gain, you know, what the director wants in the show, but also to economize on our production. And so once the workflow is set, we go into the technology aspect of the balance, mainly to create a pipeline. And so a pipeline is as it says, it's a pipeline, and what it flows inside the pipeline is the data for the production. And so for each workflow, we need a set of pipelines to allow this massive amounts of data to flow seamlessly. And again, this is the amount of stuff that we do for any show. But this is for one show, but like currently we're working on 4 series, 1 feature length, 10 short and middle-sized animation projects. And so we'll be creating like 6,000 assets within a period of 1 to 2 years with 40,000 shots. So that's a lot of stuff that we create and visually and have to manage. And so it's impossible for us, our production coordinators, to be managing all this through Excel sheets or anything else. We need to create tools, we need to create databases to do this. And so we have amassed a assortment of tools which we call PPI tools. We are in the 3rd version of our pipeline. And what these tools do is to support each and every portion of our production workflow. And since this is not, I'm not going to be doing a technical talk today. I'm not going to talk about each and every tool and what it does, but just to give you an example of what sort of tools that they are, there are stuff like PPI launchers. That is basically just a window that allows you access to all the applications and tool sets that we have. Seems like a no-brainer, but it's actually really important because the applications and the tools get revised very, very often, and you don't want your artists to be accessing the wrong version of the application or the tools, and so we regulate that. We have a directory manager so that we don't give the artists freedom to access any sort of directory. We can regulate them into picking up or placing a data in the right directory. We would have things like PPI review, where it's based on our Foundry Heroes application, but we tweak it so that the notes that are given are assimilated to all the artists, both in Tokyo and in Malaysia, and we know the exact status of each shot, because again, we're creating massive amounts of shots in a real quick manner. What's really important for us is that our pipeline can be used by a global partner, because again, we have a lot of global partners, the biggest of which is our Malaysian partner, but we do work with China, we do work with India, we do work with Thailand, and we do work with, we work with a lot of people. So it is important that all of our global partners have some sort of access to our tool sets, and we can regulate how they access our data and where it is. And so we have this system called PPI Data Share, where all of our data is in a central server. All the versions are managed, and it is synchronized within to the servers that are placed in our partners' studios on an hourly basis. We even have a system like FedEx where we can track where each and every data is going, because sometimes the data that is transferred is so big that it takes a few hours to reach the destination. So by looking at the data share system, we know that the ETA of that particular data to that particular studio. And of course, face-to-face communication is extremely important. Because it is, and physical face-to-face contact is the best, but sometimes we can't do that because it's geographically apart. And so we have a video conference, state-of-the-art video conference system that allows us to communicate with our Malaysian partners mostly. You know, it's a no-brainer to have video conferencing system these days. Skype is free, whatever, but you'd be amazed actually that how much efficiency, how much better communication you will be able to get out of a sophisticated video conference system. We have this system called Rad Vision. Obviously, the visual quality is great, and so we can do checks, you know, between Malaysia and Tokyo. But the biggest element that I feel is the quality of the audio. So there's no stress in trying to hear what the other side is saying. So when I would crack a joke in Tokyo meeting space and I hear somebody in our Malaysian studio laugh, that's quality. And so that can represent, you know, a cohesiveness of a team. You know, it promotes a team to be working together. So if you do have an opportunity to work in global partners, and if you do have the money to invest, I would say it's a good investment. So we're talking about workflow, we're talking about pipeline, and then again, you know, our work is never done. It's a constant process of optimizing our processes. Kaizen is the word we use in the manufacturing industry. I actually my career started with a steel firm, and so my first experiences working was in manufacturing, and I've seen firsthand how the Japanese manufacturing industry is constantly optimized to create better processes. And so even when Japan is one of the most expensive countries in the world, we are still making automobiles there. We are still making electronic appliances there. Why? Because they've gone through constant iterations of their processes, and they've optimized to the extent that sure, they need to create value projects, but it's also economical to create in Japan. And we, for one, try to implement a lot of these best practices in other industries into our production as well. Obviously, we would do things like asset library and texture library because working digital, the reuse of what we create is a no-brainer, and it's what make, you know, it's a very close shortcut to optimization. We would do things like create generic rigs where you create one character and then you can make him skinny or tall or short, and we can even redress them and make generic characters, you know, almost on the fly. We would do things like, again, same with facial expressions. We would make for generic characters who are walking around in the streets, you know, but you need to populate the scene. You don't want to spend a lot of effort. You make things like a relatively good-looking guy and an ugly dude, and make everybody in between. And so, you know, this is our generic character creator. So we would do things like that. But you know, but we constantly have like meetings, Kaizen meetings, to discuss on our processes, how to optimize, what efficiency there can be. We would implement things like this where we borrowed the practices from software development, agile development processes, and try to implement it into our asset production processes. And why we do this is simple, because we always need to be competitive. We always need to be able to create new value, and it's a never-ending process. So, so far, I've talked about workflow, pipeline, and optimization, and from the standpoint of creative technology and management. But you know, in all these things, all these strategies and methods, the core thing are the people, the artists, the producers and coordinators that work in the studio, and they are the key. And because we are in it for the long run, and it's never an easy production, we need them to persevere. We need to have them playing on the long run. And this is one of the things that me as a president, I actually spend a lot of time thinking about. And actually, these past 2 days, the bulk of the conversations that I was having with fellow speakers and friends was about this, and how to apply the concept of this in Malaysia. So, in order to sustain ourselves, in order to keep our staff moving, we need to have them in a healthy mindset. Of course, we need to have them in a healthy body. And to do that, you know, I find motivation management extremely important. And it's not rocket science, but it's definitely not easy. But so you have to try a lot of things. And obviously, we need to be involved in projects that we feel proud, that excites us, you know. And it would be enormous if the things that we create and are proud of are recognized by the international community and audiences go to see it, and then we get things like the Emmys and stuff. That's awesome. But you know, for us to be really proud and happy about the project that we are involved in is the first step. But and we also need to ensure that the workplace where the people come to work is a healthy one, is a happy one, is somewhere that it emotes, it gives forth a tingling of creativity. I want my people to wake up and say, hey, go to work, instead of, shit, I've got to go to work. And so, you know, it all extends back into hiring practices too. Are we hiring the right people? Is there the right chemistry of people? And also, we spend a lot of energy on our work, but we spend a lot of energy on our parties too. It's not that we have like lavish parties or something. We're actually pretty cheap in that, but we spend a lot of energy trying to think up ways to make our parties fun. And me, you know, I'm in the forefront of this sort of thing. And you know, it seems all elementary, but it's all important. And also finally, you know, we spend a lot of time in our work, but luckily we're in a business where everything that we experience in life, past and present, eventually gets fed back into what we create. And so we do have to make sure that the people that work for us, work with us, are not enclosed just in the studio. We need to ensure that all of these practices of managing or efficiency or creativity or all these things are for the purpose of managing, to make sure that the artists have time for themselves, you know, with their family, with their friends, in their private life, for their hobbies and whatnot. We can't manage how they use that time, but we can, as company operators, manage how much time they spend in the company. So I find it really important. And again, if they spend the time wisely, if they spend the time to dig into what they are interested in, to mingle with their family and what they believe in, it will eventually get fed back to the property that we create. It will make it an interesting property. So I really believe in that. And so this is what I've been believing in, and this is what I've been implementing at Polygon. I'm still trying to figure out the best methods of implementing this in Malaysia. And it's probably not the same, but there may be some similarities, and there may be some differences. I'm trying to learn from it, and so it would be great if you can teach me that as well. And so that is why I'm here, and I'm trying to mingle with you guys. So, in closing, again, I'd like to emphasize the importance of balancing the creative and the technology and the management. And this was about the topic of serialized content, but it holds true in any sort of creative endeavors that we do, I believe. And you know, we're in an industry where nothing is really static. Everything changes, you know, the environment changes, requirement changes, the trend changes, and so this will teeter or it may totter, you know, but it's cool. It's cool. I mean, it's cool that it's not static. We have to deal with this stuff, and in this process, we try to balance it ultimately, and in the sense that nothing is static in our industry, I also believe that the concept of good is never static. A good content is never static, and so all the more, I think all of us have to aspire to create greatness, excellence, beyond good. And only that can we sustain ourselves as good, maybe just for instance. And so if you just aspire for good enough, it's never going to be good enough. You have to aspire for beyond good. You have to aspire to excellence. And so I ask of you to try to promote that mindset, because this is a young industry, to try to promote the concept to the young artists in Malaysia, to aspire to the utmost top, because you have to be there in order to be good. And there is no other way. And why we do this is, again, for the purpose of creating value, because I think, in a way, all of us are investors. We invest our time and energy to create content. And so we want a return in terms of audience feedback or box office results or Blu-ray sales or whatnot for our satisfaction. The audiences are investing their time, sometimes money, to enjoying the content. They're watching the show, they're buying the Blu-ray, they're subscribing to streaming services, and so they want a value in return. The people who fund the productions are investing their money as well as a business. And so it's all about creating value. This is a never-ending process. And I, for one, in Polygon Pictures, is very dedicated to strengthening the value, to creating greater value in this Malaysian ecosystem. And so I say that from the bottom of my heart. And so I really look forward to continuing our journey together. That's it. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, a big round of applause for Shuzo.